My first guest on the house today is Tonye Patrick Cole. He is the co-founder and former Group Executive Director of Sahara Group. He transitioned to politics in 2018, resigning from all executive roles to run for governor in Rivers State. He has since built a strong political team. But beyond his professional endeavors, Tonye is also a motivational speaker, writer, and mentor. He just recently checked off another challenge from his to-do list, climbing Africa's tallest mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, a feat many would consider Herculean. Today, Tonye joins us to share his joy with his experience. So, welcome on Perspectives, Tonye.
Thank you, Ruth.
Tonye, now what for you? You know, see Olumo Rock, you know, see Aso Rock. You decide, say, anything worth doing is worth doing well. So, please tell us, what was the experience like?
It was quite an incredible experience. First of all, it's not something that you just wake up and do. It's been 18 years since I first wanted to do this. And the first time I tried to do it, I began training and injured myself in that training. And so it's been 18 years before that opportunity came again. And this time around when it came, a lot of experience had been garnered over the years about mental strength, about what to do, about proper preparation. So this time around, we got there.
Yeah, but when you said you did, how did you prepare yourself physically? Did you actually practice with other rocks that were not as high?
Interestingly,
I mean, did you use our own to practice?
No, I didn't. But interestingly, I was in Morocco. So about halfway through, I started training about 4.5 months before this. And I was in Morocco for a conference, and one of the heights in Morocco is the Atlas Mountain. And when you're preparing for Kilimanjaro, you're also advised to try lower mountains. Atlas Mountain has one of the ranges that's about 2,000 meters above sea level, or 2,000 meters itself. And so on the Friday after the conference, I went for that. I climbed up and came down, and that gave me an indication of what I was to face in Kilimanjaro. Okay, but I can see you guys carrying gears, all that. So what usually is in your gear, and how long normally do these climbs take? So it depends. Some can do it in 3 days, some can do it in 4 days, some can do it in 5 or 6. I was with a group of people who were, I'll call middle-aged in terms of climbing, so we're all about close to 60, between 55 and 65. And so it was an easier pace, supposedly. 12 of us went. Only 2 of us made it to the top. So even though it was meant to be an easier pace, you can see that it was still stressful. So it took 5 days to get to the top. Okay. But I'm looking at, there's actually a passage where you can pass. It's not like you are passing through a forest or anything. Or oh, you do? So, do you? Because yes. You didn't see that in any of the videos. Okay, so there are various parts. The bottom part, the first day, you go through what you call a typical rainforest and all of that, which is there. By the second into the third day, you're going through a savanna type of terrain. Third and fourth day, you're entering into what they call the mountain desert. At this point now, there's no vegetation, nothing. You're pure desert. In the fourth day, you're going through what you would call, you're well above the clouds. There's snow, there is fog. You may not be able to see where you're going and all of that, and that's where you get into the summit. So different terrains, different experience, each one has its own experience. Okay, explain to us about this high altitude feeling, because they say you can actually have high altitude sickness, like being seasick. Yeah. So how do you prepare yourself for that? Okay. What causes the nausea? So what causes, first of all, the oxygen goes down. Your oxygen intake is very, very low at this point in time. And so your body is trying to draw in as much oxygen as possible, which is meant to help you breathe better. Somebody who had gone before had told me that I should train with an oxygen mask. So there are actually masks that you can train with that will cut down your intake of oxygen. So I bought this, and for about 2.5 months, I was doing 2 hours of training where my oxygen level was cut down by half. So for me, when I then went up to the mountain, my body was now used to low oxygen. And so I didn't get the kind of sickness or the difficulty in breathing that others had, and probably because of this preparation. But I did see others that really struggled with breathing, because your breathing is very shallow at that point.
So how do you now breathe? You breathe?
You're breathing, but it's an intake.
Oh, that's how you, when you're on that level?
Because you're taking in as much oxygen as you can. Yeah. And
Constantly?
Yeah, constantly. And your walk is, there's a slow walk. You cannot rush. Even if you wanted to, your energy is low. So the walk up is very slow, and you're taking in deep breaths of oxygen. But
Okay, in terms of, because you said it took you 5 days. So how did you guys camp through the night? Would you build a camp and then...
Okay, so...
was there any medical personnel involved in your crew?
Yeah, so first, you have a guide. So there's a guide who has done this and knows exactly what to do. On the last day, typical example, the last day, one of our members, one of our team, he had started the journey to go. I was in the front and I saw that he was struggling, so I came back and helped him, just encouraged him that let's go together. And we're taking the steps slowly. But he said that, look, his chest is constricted and he does not feel right. So we tried for a little bit. There's a sign that says it's better that you come back alive than you continue till you are dead.
Have people actually died?
Obviously. So once you feel sick, you cannot continue and all of that, you're advised to go back. And so he tried for a bit, we encouraged him, pushed him a bit, but at a particular point, myself and the guide talked about it, asked him, and said, you know what, it's better he goes back. He cannot make this. So he went back, and by the time he got back, he had to call for an evacuation. So a helicopter came to pick him up and evacuated him so that he went down. So that's to tell you how.
So in the middle of, during his descent? It wasn't
after he descended back to the camp. So there's a camp that each level, there's a place where you can camp. And so the summit camp, which is the last camp that you get to, so you summit and then you come back to that camp and then you descend down. So he went back to that camp, then called for a helicopter. The helicopter came, picked him, and took him to hospital. So that because he felt as if he was about to die, and he kept telling me, he said, "I don't want to die here."
How many of you were in your team, in your group?
There were 12 of us.
With one.
No. There are several guides. So there are 12 of us. Then there are several. Why the guides are that many? Because not everybody makes it to the top, and so each time somebody has to go back down, one or two of the guides will go back with them. Sometimes they are so weak that they cannot stand. And so you need two guides, one on one side and the other, guiding them down. Well,
everyone talks about the toughness of the summit nights. So can you explain what your own experience was like when you actually reached the summit?
The summit was, by the time you get to the summit, there's a particular level, one point that is so hard. At this point, once you cross that, it's a place called Gilman's Point. By the time you get to this point, then the summit is about 1.5 hours trekking. But the change in your mental state at that point is phenomenal. Because once you cross that point, you know that you will make it.
Is it like a renewed energy?
Totally renewed energy. But to get to that point, this is the steepest part of the climb. The oxygen is the lowest. The terrain is the hardest. And you cannot see where you're going anymore because you can't see the peak anymore.
The tip
but
of
you
the
just know that it's there. So mentally you know that that's where you're getting to. But that last bit, I was at that point, we had separated from the whole group and I was with my son. Just both of us at this point.
Oh, your son went to you? Amazing. I didn't know your son went to you.
Yeah, he was. So both of us and the guide. So it was just 3 of us at this point. And I think that was just God's way of helping us because I had to encourage him, he had to encourage me. And so the guide put me at the back and put him just in front of me, and then he was in front. And so I think that arrangement helped us because he kind of knew that I had his back. And I, watching him in front, knew that I had somebody also to encourage me. So together, but when we got to that point, as we came up and entered this place, that Gilman's Point, it was as if we had just won the biggest battle of our lives. But we hadn't gotten to the top. But that point was renewed energy. And the guy just said to us, he said, most times once people get to this point, then they as guides know that they'll make it to the end.
So
So
that's like the last leg.
That's the last leg.
So, but when you actually now stood at the tip, literally,
Now
so to speak.
that was another experience. Somebody had said to me, a friend of mine had called me a few days before. In fact, the day before I left, he just heard I was going. And he said that he, on the day he was going, got to that same point.
This Gilmore point.
This Gilmore point. And there's another one called Stella's Point or so.
That's after the Gilmore
That's
point.
after. So there are three stages, major points. So he said between here and the Stella's Point, snow blizzard. The weather changed completely. And he said they tried, but they could not see, they could not move. So he had to come back down. So he never made it to the top. So when he told me that, I just realized that, don't take anything for granted. Prayer for even weather is important. And so I prayed God that I cannot get here and go back. So for you to give me this information, please pray for weather. And I did. And as we got there, guess what? It started to snow. The fog started coming.
At the Stella Point?
I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we can see the snow.
Yeah, it started snowing. The fog started coming. And I said, God, please. We prayed for clear weather for us to get to the top. And the weather cleared. And from that point, we just got to Uhuru. So it was beautiful. That's, that feeling, I got to that point and two things were on my mind.
Is that you now in the green jacket?
That's me.
Holding the Nigerian flag?
Nigeria jacket.
Oh my goodness.
So two things were on my mind here. The first aspect of it was that spiritually, we're at the highest point in Africa. Plant Nigeria and just establish that Nigeria must be the greatest and will lead Africa. So claim that.
That was very significant, very symbolic what you did.
For me,
there.
it was.
But what was your favorite view of the landscape from the mountain?
I think each time I saw the sun rise and sunset, there were some pictures that I took from the top of the mountain. As I look back, every now and then, life, I got many lessons. So as you are going forward, you tend to forget how far you have come, the journey that you have taken. So once in a while, it's good to just stop and look back and just see how far, and then appreciate God for how much He has pushed you through. And so each time I looked back and just looked around, and I saw the range of mountains, the sunset or sunrise, and the beauty of nature, you feel humbled because you are small. In the scale of all of this, you are like this. You are one tiny bit in all of this. And yet God has given you the grace to dominate, to conquer. Because that's what it is. In this vastness, as small as you are, you have been given the grace to conquer, but you must be humble about it. And I think that was what I always saw. I looked around and I saw this beautiful terrain of mountain ranges, snow, all sorts of... There was a glacier that we saw as we were going to the top. And my son and I looked at it and we just said, I think I said it there, that when you see this, you know it's worth it. Because I was now at the top and I saw this entire mountain, I don't know which one it was, covered, it looked like a glacier, covered with ice, completely.
Oh my goodness, that must have been a beautiful sight.
Beautiful, completely covered with ice on that side. And then on the right side, there was a volcanic crater. So Kilimanjaro is actually a volcano. I think it's the largest volcano or something in the world. So there's this huge volcanic crater, again, with ice. So on this side, you're walking between a volcanic crater. On the other side, it looked like a glacier. And I was just walking, I was looking at both of them. I'm telling you, I was just looking at both of them and I was just giving God all the glory that, for you to create this kind of thing and then give man the ability to understand how to overcome it and then the mental strength to do it.
Like we were saying earlier on, that it's fascinating to watch these videos and it's fascinating to see what you have done. But I think for the average viewer to even begin to comprehend the size of Kilimanjaro. You did a calculation. I mean, did we use Aso Rock?
We use Aso Rock and Olumo, both.
Okay, which one is the bigger one of the two? Olumo, right?
Olumo is about 500 meters.
Okay, so in terms of size.
Okay, so Olumo is 500 meters. Aso Rock is 400. So both of them are comparative. They're about the same. Okay, Kilimanjaro is 5,895.
So literally like
15 times
the size.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So you are Aso Rock times 15.
Times 15.
So just imagine that. So Aso Rock, 500 meters, I probably climbed it in 1 hour, up and down.
But what's the difference between Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro. One is technical and the other one is non-technical. What does that mean?
So Kilimanjaro is a hike. You can walk all the way to the top without any ropes and harnesses and all of that, so you can do that. Everest is technical. There are places where you must harness, because if you don't harness, you're down.
But does that now also mean that it's more steep? It's
much more steep.
It's more steep. That's why you have to literally use the harness.
It's
Whereas Kilimanjaro is wider, so you literally can walk.
Correct.
Oh, okay. That's
so
fascinating.
Kilimanjaro, you can walk. So there's no mountain has a straight route from bottom to the top. So you zigzag, you walk a bit this way, a bit that way, a bit this way, and all of that. With Kilimanjaro, you can do all of that all the way to the top.
Because it's much flatter.
Yes. So it's flat like this, and then it gets steep. So that last bit, because you're getting to the top, is steep. So that last bit is where that's where you expend so much energy. But once you get to the top, then it becomes flat again.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. But what happens to your appetite at such high altitude? And what kind of nutrition and hydration do you require?
So carbohydrates, so first of all, some people tend to not be able to eat. They don't want to eat, they lose their appetite and all of that. Very dangerous. You need energy. So you actually have to force yourself to eat. You can't say, oh, I'm not going to eat. Force yourself to eat. The food is pedestrian. At the end of the day, it's just carbohydrates. So what you need, carbohydrates and soup. Also, when I say soup, I mean
what about
broth.
chocolate bars?
You can have, if you want to. So you can carry chocolate bars, you can carry energy bars, energy drinks, and that's fine. But the most important thing of all is water. The most important is water. So most times they say carry between about 3 liters of water. But guess what? Water is heavy. So 3 liters of water is heavy. So if you're not trained to carry weight and all of that, you will struggle with that. So I was carrying 4 liters of water. I trained with 10 kg all through for the 4 months, 10 kg weights that I was carrying for 2 hours every day. So it was easy for me to carry my backpack with water, but mainly 4 kg of water minimum. It's better that you have extra water at the end than you have no water at all.
Okay, but in your backpack that you carry, what do you have inside? What
so
are they?
Water, mainly. That's the main thing that I carry. Then you can carry your balaclava, your camera. So, but in case there's cold, snow, your woolen, you can take a jacket. So sometimes it gets warm, so you might remove a jacket. So you carry a jacket, you carry a balaclava, you carry some food stuff, bars, whatever kind of bars. But primarily, the thing is full of water.
Okay, so what advice would you give to somebody who is actually planning to take on the same challenge?
So 3 things. First, the mind. I think my greatest preparation was a mind thing, that I will make it to the top. From the day I just kept saying, you will make it to the top. So the mind must be right. Secondly, overtrain. I trained thinking that I was going to be sleeping in tents, and I trained for a climb for 3 or 4 days. So when I was then told that because of our group, it will be 6 days or 7 days for me, I'd already trained so that I could make it in shorter. Listen to advice. There are people who have gone there before. So listen to them, especially you guys. You may feel at the beginning, and truly when you are first starting, you feel that these guys are walking too slowly, you can do it faster.
Oh, okay.
Because at the beginning, your energy level, but they're telling you slowly. Why are they doing it slowly? They call it poly. Why? So that you can acclimatize.
It's like running a marathon, a long marathon.
Yes.
You can't expend all your energy.
You can't expend all. Thank you. So the training, the listening, the understanding, it's what has been put before you, because others have been there before. Now you are coming and you now decide that you know better. Oh, I know my body. I know how my body is. I know what I'm going to. You will fail.
So how many of you started and how many of you actually now finally reached the summit?
So 12 of us started. Only 2 got to the top. 8 got to that point that I talked about. That is the major point that you can then make it to the end. But they're taking so long to get there that most of their energy had been dissipated. And for those, maybe about 2 of them, of that 8, could have gotten to the top, but by now the time was too dangerous, and coming back at night would have been too dangerous coming down. And so they had to abort and then start coming down. 2 could not make it at all, so they dropped down.
Okay, and so what was the journey back like...
The descent was just beautifully fast.
I know. It's like climbing down the stairs.
It was beautifully fast. But there's a technique to it. And so, unlike the zigzag, the soil is very loamy, very loose.
What is very loose?
The soil at the top.
The soil?
Yeah. It's like limestone almost.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The soil on
the soil on the mountain going... So that's why going up
is it slippery?
Very. Coming down is... If you do not... So there's a particular technique with coming down. The soil is loose, so you have to dig in with your heel. It will slide a bit until it gets traction, and then you stop, then you do the next one. So there's a technique coming down.
Are there special trainers that you have to wear for that?
Just hiking boots. Hiking boots, but it's the technique coming down. So quickly you learn the technique. So coming down,
otherwise you just sort of...
If you do it in a particular way, I remember my son trying the first way, and I said to him, oh, you will fall. This way that you are going, you just fall down and you start rolling down. So change and what. So we learned very quickly how to do it. But when you are coming down, that's from the summit coming down. So that first part was, once you understand the technique, it was very...
But what about safety gadgets? What do you now wear to ensure that even if you did fall, you won't be terribly injured?
So you make sure you don't fall. Because as we were going up, so Kilimanjaro had certain problems which, when I realized that those things exist, I said, don't get injured.
What were the problems?
Right. The first aspect of it is that the first aid that you have is only amongst yourselves. If you get injured, they're going to have to carry you on a trolley.
Wow.
From the top.
Airlift you, basically.
Not airlift. They are carrying you down the mountain. The helicopter only comes for those who have insurance. And there must be that pure international insurance. If you don't have it, they are carrying you down.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you. So when I saw that, I said, don't get injured. So that's why it's important that you follow the rules. Don't go where nobody
but sometimes you can't estimate mishaps.
So
this is what I'm saying. So literally, has anybody ever been collected from the Stellar Summit?
We saw somebody being... So most people are helped.
No, I mean by air ambulance, helicopters.
Yeah. I told you one of my group was airlifted down. But he had insurance, and he called and they did the insurance, and he was airlifted down. But I also saw the ones that they carried down. They will put you on a trolley with one wheel, and they will maneuver you from the top down. Now, imagine you have a broken leg or a broken bone, and they're doing that. I said, no.
Anyway,
don't
that is
break
a very, very interesting experience that you've given us. Thank you so much, Tonye, for sharing your beautiful, wonderful experience with our audience. We hope one or two people will read yours and decide.
They should go,
to
please.
Take the next, face this challenge and overcome it.
It's a life
Congratulations
challenge.
on it. And I didn't know your son was involved, even better. He achieved it much younger than you, so...
Yes, 30 years.
By the time it's your age, you might want to go to Mars.
Who knows? Why not?
Thank you so much, Tonye,
Thank you so much, Ruth,
for being with us.